Football is already the most physical sport in America. But every once in a while, a player comes along who isn't just good. They're downright terrifying. These are the guys who made opponents nervous the night before the game. The guys who left quarterbacks checking over their shoulders and receivers wondering if it was really worth going across the middle. So today, we're counting down the 10 scariest players in NFL history. Stick around because trust me, by the end, you'll be questioning if you'd ever want to line up against any of these legends. And hey, if you think we missed someone, drop your pick in the comments. Let's see who the fans really fear. Number 10, James Harrison, Pittsburgh Steelers. When we talk about intimidation in the modern era, nobody did it like James Harrison. At 6 feet, 242 pounds, Harrison wasn't the biggest linebacker. But what made him terrifying was his sheer explosiveness and violent tackling style. Remember Super Bowl 43? That 100-yard pick six he had before halftime wasn't just legendary because of the run. It was legendary because of how many players he ran through and how gassed he was at the end. That moment summed up Harrison perfectly. Relentless, brutal, and unwilling to quit. Here's the thing, though. Harrison wasn't even drafted. He fought his way into the league, got cut multiple times, and still managed to carve out a career as one of the most feared defenders in Steelers history. If you were a quarterback in the AFC North during the 2000s, you probably lost sleep the night before playing Pittsburgh. And let's not forget, Harrison's workouts became almost as legendary as his hits. Videos of him bench pressing insane weight or doing resistance band squats went viral, proving he wasn't human. Question for you guys. If you were an offensive tackle, would you rather face James Harrison in his prime or a double team from a defensive line like Aaron Donald and Myles Garrett today? Let me know below. Number 9, Jack Tatum, Oakland Raiders. Now, moving back to the 70s, when the NFL was a completely different animal, Jack Tatum, known as the Assassin, was the definition of scary. Tatum didn't just tackle you, he tried to erase you. The most infamous moment of his career, the 1978 preseason hit on Patriots wide receiver Darryl Stingley that left Stingley paralyzed. Now, Tatum never apologized, and that only added to the legend of his cold-blooded style. Offense is new. If you went across the middle against the Raiders, you had to answer one question. Was the catch worth the pain? But it wasn't all brutality. Tatum was also part of one of the most famous plays in NFL history, the Immaculate Reception. It was his hit on Frenchie Fuqua that caused the ball to pop into Franco Harris's hands, sparking one of the most debated plays ever. The Raiders of that era had a reputation for being villains, and Tatum embodied that perfectly. He wasn't out there to make friends. He was out there to dominate. Backhand index pointing right, here's something to think about. If Jack Tatum played in today's NFL with all the new safety rules, would he even last a season? Or would he be fined into retirement? Number 8, Reggie White, Eagles/Packers. They didn't call him the Minister of Defense for nothing. Reggie White was one of the most dominant pass rushers ever, with 198 career sacks. But what made him scary wasn't just the numbers. It was how he got them. White had a move called the hump move, where he'd literally throw 300-pound offensive linemen like they were rag dolls. And we're not talking about one or two clips. He did this consistently. Imagine being a quarterback, seeing Reggie White toss your lineman aside like a tackling dummy and knowing you're next. And get this, off the field, White was a soft-spoken minister. But once he strapped on that helmet, he flipped a switch and became a nightmare. It's that duality that made him fascinating. Also, don't forget his impact in Green Bay. When he signed with the Packers in 1993, it was a turning point for the franchise. He brought credibility, leadership, and a culture of fear on defense that helped them win Super Bowl 31. Thought balloon hypothetical. If Reggie White played in today's pass-heavy NFL, could he actually break the single-season sack record? He had 21 sacks in 87 in just 12 games during a strike-shortened season. Imagine if he played 17 games today. Number 7, Mean Joe Green, Pittsburgh Steelers. You can't make this list without Mean Joe Green. He wasn't just scary because of his size, 6 feet 4 inches, 275 pounds back in the 70s, but because of his presence. He was the leader of the Steelers' legendary steel curtain defense. and he made life miserable for offensive lines. Green had a mean streak. He once kicked an opponent in the groin during a playoff game. Another time, he threw a football right into the stands out of frustration. The guy was unpredictable, and that made him even scarier. But here's the twist. Despite his intimidation, Green is also remembered for one of the most heartwarming commercials in sports history. The Coca-Cola ad where he tosses his jersey to a little kid. It's this bizarre contrast. Brutal warrior on the field, soft-hearted icon off it. For 13 seasons, Green anchored one of the most feared defenses ever. For Super Bowls, countless broken plays, and a legacy that still makes Pittsburgh fans proud. Quick thought. If you had to build a defense and could only choose one, Mean Joe Green or Aaron Donald, who would you pick? Comment your choice. Number 6. Ronnie Lott, San Francisco 49ers. Ronnie Lott wasn't just feared, he was respected to the point of legend. A Hall of Fame safety, he hit like a linebacker and played with the intensity of 10 men. The story that defines him? In 1985, Lott crushed his pinky finger during a tackle. Doctors told him he could either have surgery and miss the playoffs or amputate part of the finger and keep playing. Lott chose amputation. Think about that. He literally sacrificed part of his body just to stay on the field. Receivers dreaded playing against him. If you dared to go across the middle, you knew Lott was waiting. And more often than not, you'd pay the price. And while most defensive backs are remembered for interceptions, Lott is remembered for something more valuable: pure intimidation. His presence made quarterbacks hesitate and wideouts hesitate. That's power. Here's a question. Would you rather face Ed Reed in his prime, with his mind games and interceptions, or Ronnie Lott, who might physically destroy you? Number 5. Deacon Jones, Los Angeles Rams. Before there were sack artists, there was Deacon Jones. In fact, he's the one who invented the word sack. Jones was pure chaos. He had a signature move called the head slap, where he'd literally smack an offensive lineman's helmet to stun him before blowing past. That move was so effective the NFL eventually banned it. Imagine being so violent they have to change the rulebook. And here's the scary part. Sacks weren't even officially recorded during his career. If they had been, Jones might hold records that no one could touch. Some say he had multiple 20-plus sack seasons, but they'll never be in the books. Jones once said, "You take all the head-slapping, eye-gouging, leg-whipping out of this game, then you got a touch football league." That tells you everything you need to know about his mentality. Hypothetical. If sacks were recorded in his prime, would Deacon Jones, not Bruce Smith, be the all-time leader? Number 4. Jack Lambert, Pittsburgh Steelers. Jack Lambert wasn't just scary. He looked scary. The man had no front teeth, a wild-eyed glare, and a snarling attitude that fit perfectly with the Steel Curtain defense. He once said, "Quarterbacks should wear dresses." That's the level of disrespect he had for opposing offenses. Lambert played middle linebacker with a ferocity that defined the Steelers' dynasty of the 70s. He won Defensive Player of the Year for Super Bowls and left a trail of battered opponents. There's a famous story of Lambert literally picking up a rookie who dared to taunt him and teaching him a quick lesson. Nobody messed with Jack Lambert. Audience moment. Who do you think was scarier, Jack Lambert or James Harrison? Both Steelers legends, both feared across the league. Number 3. Ray Lewis, Baltimore Ravens. Ray Lewis wasn't just scary because of his hits. He was scary because of his aura. When Lewis came out of the tunnel with his iconic dance, you knew something bad was about to happen. He was a leader, motivator, an emotional engine for one of the greatest defenses ever. On the field, Lewis was a heat-seeking missile. He could destroy running backs, cover tight ends, and blitz quarterbacks, all an elite level. And then, when the play was over, he'd scream, hype up his teammates, and strike fear into the entire stadium. But beyond the game, Lewis was polarizing. He had off-field controversies early in his career, which only added to the mystique. Opposing fans hated him. Ravens fans worshipped him. His biggest moment? Super Bowl 35, when the Ravens defense obliterated the Giants and Lewis walked away with the MVP. Thought-provoking. Is Ray Lewis the scariest linebacker ever, or is he the greatest leader ever? Maybe both. Number 2, Dick Butkus, Chicago Bears. They called him the monster of the Midway for a reason. Dick Butkus was pure intimidation. Every description of him sounds like a horror story. Bone-crushing hits, snarling trash talk, and a relentless drive to punish anyone with a football. Butkus once said his idea of a good tackle was when he hit a guy so hard his helmet flew 10 yards away. That's not football. That's demolition. There are stories of players actually faking injuries just to avoid being hit by Butkus. That's how scary he was. Even though the Bears didn't win much during his era, Butkus made Chicago football famous. To this day, when you think of the Bears, you think of tough, blue-collar defense. That's the Butkus legacy. Hypothetical. If Butkus played in today's NFL, would he be constantly ejected and fined, or would he somehow adapt and still dominate? Number 1. Lawrence Taylor, New York Giants. And finally, at number 1, the scariest player in NFL history, Lawrence Taylor. LT wasn't just scary, he was revolutionary. Before him, outside linebackers weren't used as pass-rushing weapons. But Taylor's speed, power, and violence forced the entire league to rethink how to block. Teams literally had to redesign offenses because of him. Joe Theismann, whose career ended with that infamous broken leg on a sack by LT, said it best, Taylor was like a man among boys. Taylor's intimidation went beyond physical play. He was unpredictable, reckless, and played with a kind of raw chaos that made him impossible to prepare for. Bill Belichick, who coached LT with the Giants, still calls him the greatest defensive player he's ever seen. And here's the kicker. Taylor partied hard off the field, often showing up with little sleep and still destroy defenses. Imagine what he'd do if he was 100% focused. Lawrence Taylor didn't just sack quarterbacks. He ended careers, wrecked game plans, and terrified offensive coordinators. That's why he's number 1. Final audience question. Is LT the most dominant defensive player in sports history? Period? Or does someone like Michael Jordan on offense and basketball compare in terms of fear factor? And there you have it, the 10 scariest players in NFL history. These are the guys who didn't just play the game. They changed it. Now it's your turn. Who do you think was the scariest? Do we leave someone off? Maybe Brian Dawkins with his Weapon X alter ego? Maybe Troy Polamalu flying through the air? Or even modern players like Aaron Donald or Myles Garrett? Drop your answers in the comments. I'll be reading them. And I'm curious who fans think deserves the crown. And if you enjoyed this list, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more deep dives into the wildest stories in football. Until next time, stay safe.